Alright, I've been putting this off for a little while, mostly because I wanted to get to all the fun stuff first. And now that that's mostly underway, yeah, it's time to get down to the nitty gritty and do some basic meat and potatoes maintenance. I've got a CV axle here because when I bought this car a couple of months ago, the boot on it was torn and I haven't done anything about it yet. But before that thing gets any worse, today is a really nasty day here, so it's a perfect day to lock myself in my garage and put this thing on and sort out my leaking CV boot once and for all. Now, this is going to be a DIY video, so by all means follow along and do this at home if you have to as well. If I can do it, so can you. And of course, consider subscribing if you want to see content like this in the future, where I show you how to do things that you can do as well at home in your garage. But enough chit chat from me, let's get to it. With the wheel off and the car obviously supported with a jack stand, now we can really see what we're dealing with here. So let me show you. In the middle of the hub on the front wheel, you're going to find this nut. That end and this thread is basically this end and this nut. So we have to undo this nut to basically be able to slide this in and out through in here. Now, to do that, we're gonna have to undo a couple of things, and the main one are the two strut bolts. Here they are. These are the two main strut bolts right there. Now, before you undo these, you're just gonna have to take some care, because while the bottom one you can undo just fine without an issue, the top one is actually a camber bolt. Can you see how it's got those little indentations on it, showing you what degree your camber is set at? So you're gonna have to make a note of that before you remove this bolt, so that when you put it back to the same place. That's gonna be really important to make sure that your camber and your wheel alignment stays identical to what it was before you touched anything. Besides that, I think there's not much else to it. We're gonna undo a couple of sensors and whatnot, and yeah, we should be able to slide this thing out. So let's give it a crack. To start things off, see this brake line here? Well, it's attached to your strut through this 12mm bolt. I'm going to remove that, as well as this ABS sensor over here on the other side of the strut, to make sure that I don't accidentally catch these while I'm moving things in and out. I'm going to undo it and move it out of the way. So I'll start with this one. Okay, now that both of these are loose, now that I know that if I accidentally snag on one of them, I've got some give, it won't just tear basically. Alright, so next I'm going to undo this top nut, and just remember, this top nut has a bunch of grooves in it. You see that? Because it's actually a camber bolt. So you're going to need to mark where it's positioned so that when you put it back on, it goes back in the same place. So what I'm going to do is draw a line across here, like that, down through here, like that. And I'll do another one, just so that I don't accidentally flip this around. I'll put another one there. So now I know when these two lines meet up with this bolt, I've got everything back in the right spot. So both this nut and the bottom one here are 19mm, and what you're going to want to do is get yourself a 19mm spanner and just hold the nut in place, and the bolt on the other side gets undone like that. Do the same for the bottom. Okay, both of these bolts are now loose, so this thing's ready to come out. But before I take these bolts out completely, what I'm actually going to do is loosen this nut over here. So to take this nut off, you've got to think about a couple of things. First of all, there's a little bit of a pinch in here, so make sure that that is loosened off of the thread here. And once it is, you should be able to impact this off. If you don't have an impact gun, the other way you can do this is get somebody to step on the brake pedal so they hold the disc in place, and then you'll have enough force to put a pry bar onto here and basically undo this nut. This nut is very tight. It's 220 Newton meters, so you're gonna have to use a lot of force to get this off. So let's give it a crack with the impact gun first, and let's see if it makes our job easier. If not, we'll crack out the pry bar. So again, make sure that this is off here, and for me it is by the looks of things. I might just give it another tap to make sure. So the socket size you're going to need is a 32. We're nice and loose. I might give this a couple of taps real quick with the back of a hammer, just to loosen it. And I can see that that's moving now. Alrighty, so the next thing I'll do is take off these two top bolts. So now you can see how this bolt, you can see that there's a bit of a bulge in it, and that basically sets your camber in and out, in and out. So now that we've got this bolt marked, I'm absolutely positive that we'll be able to put it back exactly where it was. Okay, so now what's going to happen is when I remove this bottom bolt, this whole hub face is going to shift forward. Make sure our cables are free. You'll be able to shift this forward like that. And now you'll be able to see exactly why I'm swapping this boot out. As you can see, I've got a lot of grease here. It's time to push this out. So I'm just taking a pry bar. There we go, just popping that out. All right, and that's out. So now that that's out, basically popped out of its hole over there, I've just positioned it up here on top of the caliper. Everything is ready to go to pull this out. The only remaining thing to do will be to get underneath here, just over there, and pop it out on the other end. So on the spare CV boot, this is the bit that we've been working with, and on the other end, on the gearbox side, what we're going to do is basically pop out this circlip over here. So we just position a pry bar in there and just give it a good nudge, and this whole thing should pop out. Now when it does, just prepare that some gearbox oil might come out of your gearbox there. Just have a look after you finish the job where your gearbox level is. You might need to top it up a little bit. Not a lot should come out, but just be prepared. Put something down because you might get a few dribs and drabs. All right, so here I am underneath the car, and if you look underneath your car, just past your engine here, and in front of your downpipe is going to be a transfer case where the CV axle comes out of. So we've got nice space to get this thing out. Now I'm going to try to minimize how much oil I lose, if any. I've got a pry bar ready, I've got a mat on the floor to catch the oil. I've also got the spare CV axle here ready to go in, so as soon as I pull this out I can try to pop this in. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a pry bar, we're going to stick it in there, and we're just going to jolt it like that. And what that will do is, see this circlip just here, it's going to pop that out, and as soon as that happens this comes loose. You'll be able to pull this whole thing out and drop it down. And like I said, I've got this thing ready to go so I can pop the other one straight in and hopefully lose as little oil as possible. So enough talking, let's do it. Oh, by the way, a big note, if you're ever under your car, make sure you've got a jack stand supporting your car. Never climb under your car without a jack stand. Okay, hopefully you'll get all of this without me knocking the camera. There it is, that's loose already. So we'll just slide the new one in. Okay, the new one's in, and I didn't really lose any oil, so that's a bonus. But yeah, just expect that maybe you might get a couple of dribs and drabs here. And check your gearbox oil after you've done this job. I shouldn't have to, I should be good to go. So anyway, let's get back outside and finish up out front. All right, here is the old boot. Looks like someone's already tried taking this off once upon a time. But yeah, this seal clip is what you're fighting. If you just give it a good shove, it'll basically go right in. So don't be afraid to just give it a good nudge, and then it'll just basically pop into place. The other side is a sad story. As you can see, this is leaking quite badly, and it looks like this boot is being held on by a zip tie. So, besides my little cracks and everything, that's not great. That should be a metal clamp. But is this CV joint a lost cause? The answer is no. This is a factory CV joint, and short of replacing the boots on it and putting some proper metal clamps on it, this thing will be good to go again. So I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to keep it because at some point maybe I'll have a go at rebuilding that. If for nothing, is just to work out how to do it, just for fun. But the factory CV axles are very, very good quality. In fact, I would say better quality than a lot of the aftermarket stuff. Yes, even the brand name stuff. Think about it. This car's got 140,000 miles on it, or 220,000 Ks. That thing's lasted that long, and it's taken some abuse. So 13 years old, that many Ks, they are really good quality, so don't throw it in the bin. It's worth a rebuild, and give it a crack yourself. Maybe you'll learn something. Anyway, back to it. It's time to clean a few things up here, and then we'll be putting all this back together. All right, so you know me by now. I can't just leave things like this. I'm gonna have to do a bit of cleanup before this thing goes back together. That's better. So from here, things couldn't be simpler. Basically, just pop this back in. And now that that's back in, realign the strut bolts, put the bottom strut bolt back in, and the top one as well. So again here, you're looking to align your marks like that. So my marks line up, so I know that this camber is good. And now it's simple. We put the two bolts back on the other side, feed the CV hub nut back on. Okay, so with this CV hub nut holding things in place, the next thing I'm going to do is torque down the two strut bolts. So take out your torque wrench and set it to 155 Newton meters. Now when you turn this, just make sure this doesn't move. If it does, you're going to need to undo it. There we go. With those done, we can reattach these two 12 millimeters. So one for the brake line and one for the ABS sensor on the other side. There we go. So the only thing left to do is to tighten up this hub nut. This has to go to 220 Newton meters, so quite a lot. Now, I wouldn't recommend just ratcheting this down. Definitely bring out your torque wrench to do this. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get someone to sit in the car and put the brakes on so that this doesn't rotate, and then I'm going to tighten this down with a torque wrench. Go. Harder. Beautiful. There we go. And that's it, legends. That's how hard, or easy it is, I should say, to replace a CV axle on a WRX. Hit the like button if you like what you saw, and if you do want to support me, this is the way to do it. Pick yourself up some work gloves, link is below. So, if you're going to work on cars, consider protecting your hands so that you don't cut yourself up. I sell these really good work gloves, alright? Now let me show you what I mean by really good. So here's a piece of paper, here's a Stanley knife, and watch this. Okay, so the Stanley knife is really sharp. Now, watch this. Nothing. Alright? These things are cut proof. The other thing is they're also really thin, and I don't know about you, but the thing I really dislike about general mechanic gloves is that they're bulky, and they kind of get in the way of movement. You know, their dexterity isn't very good, the movement isn't very good in them because they're quite bulky. So I basically developed these gloves using a cut-proof material, but one that is also very thin and stretchy. And what that helps me do is move, basically. They don't really get in the way as much as those big, bulky mechanic gloves. So they're cut-proof, they're nice and flexible, they're also breathable. So on the top here, they're really breathable. The underneath is coated in nitrile so that they're oil and waterproof. And because they're coated in nitrile, they're also really high grip. So these are a really good solution, well, I think anyway, for doing jobs like this where you got to get dirty, but you really also got to protect your hands, otherwise you'll cut yourself up. So consider picking up a pair if you want to do a job like this. I'll leave a link in the description below. Now there's nothing left to do here except to put the wheel back on and enjoy your car. All said and done, everything's finished. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps me out. And as a final thank you for hanging around for this long, here are all the tools you're going to need to get this job done. I hope this video helps you out, and what are you waiting for? Try this at home yourself. I'll catch ya. Okay, thank you once again for watching this video, guys. Here's one final thank you from me. All the tools you're going to need to get this job done. First, have a jack and some jack stands ready for obvious reasons. Have yourself a new CV axle ready, of course, a ratchet gun or a ratchet set. Have a 32mm socket, a 19mm socket, a 12mm socket, a 19mm spanner, a paint marker to help mark your camber bolt, a hammer and a pry bar to help maneuver things out of position, a torch so you can see things in the dark, some safety glasses so that you don't get things in your eyes, and of course get yourself some cut-proof work gloves so that you don't cut up your hands. I hope you enjoyed this video. That's enough chit chat from me. I'll catch you next time.